You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hello and welcome to a brand new feature on the channel. It's Harry's Premier League predictions. Lots of you have been asking for me to start doing this, to give you my predictions, not just on Arsenal games, but on the Premier League in general as each weekend comes along. So I've decided that that's what I'm going to do. So going forward, Friday evenings, I'll be bringing you this show. It is a pre-record, so if you think I'm ignoring your comments, I'm not. It is a pre-record. So yeah, it's a pre-record and we're going to be looking ahead to the Premier League fixtures this weekend. I'll be sharing my brief, there we go, got it there in the end. I'll be sharing my brief thoughts on the games coming up and my reasoning behind that. And yeah, let's have some fun. Now, by the time this video goes out to you guys, the game, firstly, between Brighton and Burnley would have already finished, and the game between Southampton and Newcastle United at St Mary's would have already kicked off. So we're going to breeze past those two games. Let's pretend they're not happening. Come on, they're not exactly classics anyway. So let's ignore those. We're going to move on and we're going to start with Saturday's games, and we're going to begin at Goodison Park in the game between Everton and Manchester United. Could this be Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's last game, or last weekend even, as Manchester United boss? Who knows? He's come under a lot of pressure in the last couple of weeks. Obviously that defeat at the hands of Arsenal certainly didn't help, but the nail in the coffin for some Manchester United fans was very much the defeat in Istanbul midweek, where they were beaten by Istanbul Başakşehir. And for me, when I look back on that game, look, I know the games are being played in empty stadiums and all that, but going to Turkey in a European game is never easy. So I don't think it's that result in isolation that's upset people, but obviously it's the nature of the defeat, isn't it? I mean, in particular, that first goal where Demba Ba, who's about as slow as Per Mertesacker nowadays, somehow ran from the halfway line. And it was just sod's law for United fans that it was Matic, the one chasing him back, probably the second slowest footballer on the pitch. But it was just the nature of the defeat. And I think it's got to the point now with Manchester United where people are looking at them and saying, right, Ole's had a fair amount of time now, yet the progress isn't really there. So where are we going? What's the direction? Should we be in a better position than we currently are? And I think that, combined with the frustration of the transfer window, has upset a lot of United fans, and it's put them in a position where they're getting a little bit cranky, to be honest with you. Trip to Everton, never easy, of course. Everton started the season really, really well, but they're going to be without some key players again. And we've seen in the last couple of weeks that the sort of absences that Everton have been a real problem for them. Yes, we look at Carlo Ancelotti's side and we see a very strong side, and we see a side who, you know, could potentially challenge for a top six position. But when you look beyond their first 11, when you take out the likes of James, the likes of Richarlison, who have been missing, it is a real problem. Add into that the fact that Lucas Digne serving a suspension, Seamus Coleman being out, then it's very clear that actually as a squad, Everton still have a long way to go. I think this is a good opportunity for Ole to get make a statement in terms of an important away win that could be the beginning of him earning a little bit more time. And that always seems to be the way with Ole. It's, oh no, get him out, and then he pulls out a couple of results out of the bag, and all of a sudden everybody loves him again. So this feels like that kind of game to me. It feels like the kind of game that Ole could potentially get a result in. And when you take into consideration Everton's injury problems and the suspensions that they're having to deal with, and I mentioned it's impacted them in the last few weeks. You know, obviously they drew at home with Liverpool three games ago, respectable result in its own right, but then they lost at Southampton and then they lost at Newcastle. So there is a correlation there between Everton's form taking a dip and the fact that those players have been missing. Man United's form is not much better, though. Of course, they lost to Arsenal, as I've already mentioned, and then before that, they played out a really dull 0-0 draw against Chelsea at Old Trafford. So, yeah, if I had to stick my neck on the line with this one, and the way we're going to be doing this, we're going to do home win, away win, or draw. I'm going to go with an away win on this, just because I feel like Ole's got that kind of luck, that kind of fortune that he's had throughout his career, not just as a manager, but as a player as well. And I think we've seen the cycle, haven't we? Ole does terribly. Ole pulls a result out the bag. Ole buys himself a bit more time. And I think that's going to be the case again here this weekend. So I am backing the away win on that one. Right, let's move on to Crystal Palace versus Leeds United. I was watching actually a preview where a Leeds fan and a Crystal Palace fan were discussing this. And they were talking about sort of, the two ambitions of the two sides, and the Leeds fan was very much of the view that yes, we can potentially push for Europe, and the Palace fan was like, well, we'll just be happy to stay in the division, and that shows a massive difference, doesn't it, between these two clubs? Obviously, Palace, an established Premier League force now, but their current league positions are not too dissimilar. Leeds currently in 12th at the time of recording this, Palace in 13th. Both sides have won 3 games each. Both sides have drawn 1 and both sides have lost 3. So this is a really tough game to call. I think Leeds have taken a lot of people by surprise at the start of this campaign with their style of play and how brave they've been. But Roy Hodgson is a wily old fox. I do think, and I've said this for years and years and years, that as long as Roy Hodgson is in charge of Crystal Palace, they won't be relegated. Not had great results at certain points in this season. Palace obviously started the season really well with a couple of wins, but then a defeat at home to Everton, a defeat at Chelsea, and a defeat at Wolves have come since then, plus a draw with Brighton at home. Leeds also go into this one off the back of a defeat, having been beaten heavily at home by Leicester City. I'm going to lean on the draw with this one. So I'm going to lean towards the draw for this. Crystal Palace to draw with Leeds United. That is my prediction for that one, taking place at Selhurst Park this Saturday. Right, let's move on. What have we got next? Chelsea versus Sheffield United, a game I am commentating on across the United States for VSIN. So keep an eye on my Twitter feed. I'll be sharing the link. If you're based in the States, you can listen to us via iHeartRadio. If you're based in the UK, I believe that the link does work in the UK as well. So come and join myself and Nigel Seeley for that one. Look, if this was last season, I'd be looking at Sheffield United as a side capable of springing a potential surprise, but they just haven't been the same team this season. They've been really, really weak so far. They would argue that their performances probably warrant a little bit more than what they've actually got in terms of results and outcomes. Chelsea, well, they've been drawing a lot recently. They've drawn 3 of their last 5 Premier League games, but they do come into this off the back of a comfortable win in Europe and a comfortable win at Burnley in the Premier League. So, yeah, let's see. Let's see how that goes. When it comes to Sheffield United, as I said, dire form. The only game that they looked like winning was that game, or that they should have probably won on paper, was, I should say, is the one against Fulham at home. When you look at that run of games that they've had, Leeds already spoken about how well they've done at the start of this season. Arsenal away, Liverpool away, Man City at home. Not really games you expect Sheffield United to take anything from, but the Fulham one was the one that stands out to me. I think they've made a bit of a mistake in gambling on Ryan Brewster in terms of trying to get their goals through him. I don't think he's quite ready yet. I think it was a huge gamble in terms of the fee they paid, and I think often you see managers trying to evolve teams, and by that I mean start to move away from the basic principles that got them into the Premier League in the first place. I feel like Chris Wilder's tried to do that by signing the type of forward that Brewster is, and it isn't working. I know it's early days in his Sheffield United career, but unless they turn things around and quickly, they could be in a relegation fight this year. So I'm going to lean towards Chelsea on that one, home win. Moving on to West Ham Fulham, that is the late game taking place at the London Stadium. Bear with me, just have a sip of my coffee before it gets cold. Shouldn't have really made this just before recording this, to be fair. But when you look at the two sides so far, West Ham in 14th, Fulham in 17th. But West Ham have pulled off some impressive results this season. I don't think their league position really tells the full story about their campaign so far. They've beaten Wolves, who were a good side last season. They've beaten Leicester. Narrowly lost at Liverpool last weekend, a game that we were covering. But they've picked up two really impressive results in the games against Spurs and against Manchester City. So not much to say on this one other than Fulham are likely to be the whipping boys for most of this season. West Ham have shown signs of improvement this season. David Moyes has found a system, I think, that is getting close to the maximum out of this group, and I think he's going to stick with that, and I expect West Ham to win this one at the London Stadium. So I'm going for a home win in the game between West Ham and Fulham. Right, what do we have next? Let's move on to Sunday. West Bromwich Albion versus Spurs. I think, as much as it pains me to say this, because obviously I'm a massive Arsenal fan, Spurs, particularly going forward, well, they look like they're on fire at the moment. That combination of Son and Kane has been so devastating in so many games, and it's been really, really good from Spurs of late, picking up points in Europe, picking up points in the league. Obviously, they had that disappointment with the draw against West Ham and the nature of it having been 3-0 up, etc. But I still think that Spurs are strong favourites for this one. And I'm going to go with the away win in the game between West Bromwich Albion and Spurs, taking place at the Hawthorns on Sunday at midday. Let's go on to Leicester versus Wolves. Midlands derby, this one. Kind of. Yeah, sort of. They're in close proximity to each other. It's not the Birmingham derby. It's not a real Midlands derby technically, but Leicester not far from Wolves, is it? So it is a bit of a derby. There's a bit of a rivalry here. Leicester have really impressed me this season, and I've called Brendan Rodgers a fraud in the past, and I stick by that. I still don't think he's as good as some people make him out to be, but they're second in the league at the moment. They've picked up some excellent results at Arsenal and at Leeds after a couple of disappointing defeats at the hands of West Ham and Villa. I've been surprised at how defensively solid Leicester have been this season. They've been very, well, actually, I'm not going to say this season, I'm going to say in certain games. They've played this really low block and been really sort of negative when they've had to be. And it's added a resilience to the side. And it's not a style of play that you necessarily associate with Brendan Rodgers. But I think Leicester are back on the right track again. Wolverhampton Wanderers, for me, they're a funny old side because they're a side that on their day they can be brilliant, but I don't trust them to deliver with any level of consistency. Having said that, I think that Nuno Espirito's side will be very organised, very compact, and maybe I'm going to be going against the grain here when I say I'm going to go with a draw in the game between Leicester and Wolverhampton Wanderers. Moving on to Manchester City versus Liverpool, arguably the standout, well, not even arguably, it is for me the standout game this weekend. Takes place at 4:30. I'll be commentating on that one for Total Football Analysis. We'll be streaming that right here on this YouTube channel as well, so come and join myself and Lee Scott for that. I think this is a really interesting game. There's been a lot of talk about City not being at their best this season, being finished under Pep Guardiola, but they've still got so much talent, so much quality in that squad. It's impossible to write them off in any game. And having covered the Liverpool game against West Ham last weekend, I didn't think they were very inspiring going forward. I really didn't. I felt like something was missing. I feel like Roberto Firmino has been off the boil a little bit lately. Probably score a hat-trick now on Sunday now that I've said that. But the big concern for Liverpool is that centre-back position. Nathaniel Phillips came in at the weekend against West Ham. He did okay, but I think against a team of Manchester City's quality, the gaping holes in Liverpool's central defence right now are going to be clear for all to see. So, again, potentially this might be against the majority, but I'm going to lean towards a Manchester City win on this one. I think Pep Guardiola's side are going to make a statement here. They're going to show Liverpool that they are still in contention for this year's Premier League title and that Liverpool are not going to retain it with any degree of ease. So yeah, Manchester City for me in that one. And finally, Arsenal versus Aston Villa. Well, I'm going to leave that one and I'm going to save it for the preview show, which will be with you guys on Saturday morning. So come and join me for that. Hope you've enjoyed this quick fire prediction show. I'd love to hear you guys' predictions, and I'd love to see you guys put them in the comments, and we can compare at the end of the weekend, and we'll do a little bit of a point scoring system and see how we get on over the course of the campaign. For those of you who asked me to do this, I hope it's to your satisfaction. I hope it's what you wanted to see. If it isn't, let me know. We can make tweaks to it always. But yeah, really grateful for your support. Smash the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and let me know what you think of my predictions in the live comments section. Until next time, take care of yourselves and have a great Friday night. Cheers.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.